VIGILANT Broadcasting, the station of opportunity, presents The Chronicles of Doing Too Much with your host, Angel Riley.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Chronicles of Doing Too Much. I am your host, the one and only Angel L. Riley. I am so excited that you are here with me tonight. It is May 1st. Happy May. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that we have come to the month of May already. Where has this year gone? We're in the 5th month and it has been completely fabulous. I am actually broadcasting live to you guys on the road. So I'm praying that we continue to have a great connection tonight and really kick off the month with a bang. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight is that I started getting questions that have been excellent, superb, phenomenal questions that some have challenged me, and then others have been like, you know what, that's a good question, a good follow on. And as we prepare to do various topic discussions this month for May, and as well as with me bringing in others to come and interview to help us, live the best life possible, I just love the feedback. So if you are not already following me on social media, it is so easy to find me, Angel Riley. You can find me on Instagram and you can find me on Facebook. And pretty soon we will have all of the audio versions of the Chronicles available on YouTube. And you never know what's going to really happen with that YouTube channel in the future. But YouTube is not up yet, but definitely follow me on Instagram, Angel Riley, Riley spelled R-I-L-E-Y, and as well as on Facebook, Angel Riley. And it is so easy to find me, or you can just put it in Google and you'll be able to connect with me on social media. So one of the first questions that we received that I thought was a phenomenal question, and that was, Angel, you talked a lot about getting our financial house in order during Financial Literacy Month, but what do you do when you just don't have enough? You just don't have enough. You're working a lot of hours. You are continuing to, rob Peter to pay Paul. You just don't have enough. How do you get out of that rut? I've been there where it's like I have no idea where the bill is going, how the bill is going to be paid. I've been there where my credit was so shot that I could not possibly try to go and ask for a loan from a bank or any traditional source without putting myself in further debt. So the one thing that I do want to put out when you're saying what do you do when you don't have enough is I don't want you to go into debt to pay a debt. And that was something that I actually heard from the comedian and radio show host, TV show host, Steve Harvey, many, many, many years ago. It had to be over a decade, and I was listening to his morning radio show, and someone had a similar question, and it just resonated with me when he said, don't go into debt to pay a debt, because now that you've put yourself upside down, so you don't have enough. It's established, so now you're like, what do I do? The first thing is you need to prioritize. Now, I'm not telling anyone not to pay certain bills or anything like that. What I'm saying is that you want to prioritize. The reason that you want to prioritize is because you got to say, out of all of these bills and the limited amount of money that I have available, what do I do? What's going to have the biggest impact? What is that biggest necessity for me? So, number one, okay, do you have the money to keep a roof over your head? That's the number one thing, because if you don't have a place to live, then that's an issue. That's the number one thing. So I'm always saying go for that mortgage, go for that rent payment, whatever it is that you have. Try to see how you're going to have the money to pay that. If you're coming up short on that rent payment, if you're coming up short on that mortgage payment, then that's going to be a time that you want to. Now, I know you have a lease when you're in a rental property, and it's defined very clearly in that lease that says You late, you pay after. Now, when I lived in Texas, it was after the second of the month you were late. And like where I lived when I was renting, it was $100 late fee. So if you didn't pay that rent by the second of the month, you got $100 late fee. No questions asked, whatever. So that late fee is going to come, and now you've actually increased that amount. But you have to do what you have to do. If you don't have the money to keep that roof over your head, you don't have that money. But also what I want you to look at is, if you have the mortgage, can I call my mortgage company and talk to them about possibly some assistance programs that they can offer me for the mortgage, that the mortgage company could possibly offer, because you might not have that mortgage in America. Most mortgage companies allow you to pay your mortgage up to the 15th of the month. So that gives you a little bit more flexibility with coming up with all of that payment. But with the rent, you definitely, you're just kind of tied into a lease. And I am not a financial expert, so under no circumstances do I want you guys to say that I'm speaking to you as a financial expert. I'm not. I'm just sharing real life experiences. Now, when it comes down to the rent, the first thing I'm going to say is to check your local rental assistance programs. All right. So you might be short, you might not have it, but you're going to look at your local rental assistance programs. One of the other things that you want to take a look at is, am I really living in a spot that I can afford right now? What are the terms of my lease? When will I be able to break this lease? Not break this lease. When will this lease be over? Does it make more sense for my financial picture to discuss with my rental office of me breaking this lease? Or am I in a situation where I can get a roommate or something to bring in that additional income that you need to be able to pay for that roof over your head? So that's the number one priority. And if it gets down to the point where you're like, I just can't provide, I just can't afford to have my own spot, is there someone that you can go and live with temporarily, so you can build up that money? You can pay down some of the bills that, you will get that financial situation together that you need. Is there someone that you can count on to go to for that specifically and say, hey, Joe, can I live with you for 6 months while I change some things around with my finances? Offer to give them some rent. Don't try not to freeload unless it's like a family member and that's, an agreement that you all have. But talk about that. Really look at your expenses and say, is this or is this not viable for me? So that's the number one thing you want to look at. Second thing is food. All right. I always say a roof over your head, food in your belly. All right. So you want to look at food. I am an avid couponer, and you have to do what you have to do. The cost of a newspaper to get your coupons is minimal. Even if you're paying $3.50 for a newspaper, get that newspaper. Start looking at coupons. Go to sites like coupons.com where you can download print out actually 2 coupons for each one that they have. You have Red Plum. You have Smart Source. You have so many different coupon sites. I like to follow Coupon Moms and Coupon Divas and Southern Savers. All of those are great people to follow. They help you out. They continue to help you build. But start looking at coupons and start bringing down the cost of your food significantly. Like, coupons are money. All right, so you want to start learning how to coupon, bring the expenses down for your food down as much as possible, and then you will definitely see money coming from places that you never expected to see. So number one priority, do I have a roof over my head? If I don't have a roof over my head, or if I'm in dire need, then what are the options that I have available to me to make sure that I am going to have a place to live, that I am going to, be there. And if you're at a point where you don't have anyone to turn to, when you have a roof over your head, if you're at a point where you're like, I just can't afford this spot right now, then you do want to look at options like if you have to go to a temporary shelter, a temporary living facility. And I know that is like last case, worst case scenario. But if that's the option, if you are in a financial situation that have gotten you to that point that it's that dire, sometimes we have to appreciate where we are to be able to truly get to where we are going. We have to appreciate where we are to truly get to where we are going. All right, and I'm going to tell y'all a story after I do the recap for the second. So the second one, where I said, is you want to get food. You want to have food in your belly. All right, so start couponing. Start looking at that. Looking at the types of food that you're buying. So sometimes, if it's $10 for a family pack of pork chops, and I'm just making this up. If you can get a family pack of pork chops for $10, you look at that, and I do this on my own, and it's just me, but I count how many pork chops are in each pack. It doesn't matter what the meat is. I count how many is there, and then in my head, I determine how many meals does that make for me. So if you're a person of one and there's 10 pork chops in a pack, that's 2 pork chops a meal. So I'm not saying, oh, you got to really starve yourself, but you have to look at it and say, how long is this going to last me? How am I going to portion this out? How am I going to ration this out? Look for the discount meat. One of the things that I like to do, and what I found, is that when the grocery stores mark down their meat, if you're not going to eat it immediately, you definitely want to go ahead and freeze it. I know people who they do a quick salt water wash, put it in the Ziploc bags and freeze it. I am a strong advocate of getting the discount meat. Now, if it looks odd or whatever, then I just leave it there because it's too long for that it's been out. But look at the date, because the date on the meat in the grocery store here in America, that's the sell-by date for the supermarket. But it's not saying that meat is bad. So you want to look at stuff like that and say, okay, all right, if this is marked down $4 and this is going to be 2 meals for me, this is worth me purchasing. So if I don't want to necessarily cook it immediately, I can go ahead, do a quick salt water wash, get it nice in my Ziploc bag, and then put it in the freezer. So now I have, different meats. So if you ever come to my house, you're always going to eat something delicious, but 9 times out of 10, that meat was either on sale or I got it in a discount situation. I just keep it real, guys, because I do make sure that I appreciated where I was at one point so I can be able to live comfortably in the future and continue to build in the future. And so I said I was going to tell you guys a story when we talked about priorities. And actually, just to kind of structure, I'm going to end with the story. All right. Third thing is you want to look at your utilities. All right. So we have the roof over our head. We have food. We have food to eat. And now we're going to look at our utilities. All right, what's the most pressing utility for you? If you have, if electricity is, most of your home is run by electricity, that's the priority bill. If most of your home is run by gas, that's the priority bill. The good thing is that with the utility companies, you can call them and you can talk about payment plans. In the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm sure that it is nationwide, some of the utility companies actually have special programs, special assistance programs for you to tell them about your financial situation to get those special assistance areas. So you have to do the legwork. You have to put your homework in. It's not going to be easy, but these are different ways to get you that assistance, to get you that help, to pull back and say, I just don't have enough. How do I get to the point where I have enough to take care of all of the expenses and financial responsibilities that I have? All right, so then you want to look at your transportation. All right, so that's the fourth thing. So home is number 1, food is number 2, utilities is number 3, and now you're going to look at transportation. Now, this is the thing. If you have a vehicle, and I know this is going to be hard, and there was a time in my life that I had to look at this situation for myself. If you have a vehicle, but you live and you can operate where you're like, okay, I'm going to get rid of this vehicle temporarily, or I'm going to sell it or whatever, or I'm going to trade it in to get something cheaper, even if I have to get a higher interest rate. If I just have to put myself on what we say in the urban community, I have to go on a humble temporarily to make sure that I can get these finances to match. That's exactly what you have to do. All right, so if you have a vehicle and you're like, I just cannot keep this vehicle, sell it, do whatever, and use public mass transportation. All right, because that may just be the option for you. If you have a vehicle that you owe money on and you're not necessarily, what we would say upside down, where you owe more than what the vehicle is worth, that's worth going in, trading it in or doing whatever to get rid of it, selling it, and doing whatever you have to do to lower that cost. So you really want to look and say, what are my transportation options? Can I go on the quote-unquote humble momentarily? If that's not an option, what you're going to do is say, how do I lower this vehicle cost because I have to have this. This is a necessity for me. Where I live in Maryland, it's a necessity to have a vehicle. Where I live in Texas, it's a necessity to have a vehicle. So no matter what, that had to be a priority for me because otherwise I wasn't going to get back and forth to work. And then finally, you want to look at your time. What can I do realistically for my time to be able to pick up a second income? Because at some point you have to do it. Now, I'm an advocate of direct sales, but I'm going to be honest with you. If you're looking at if you need money instantly, if you need money right now, direct sales may not be that best option if you just can't make ends meet. So you might have to pick up a part-time job temporarily. But I'm all for going into direct sales. But direct sales is going to take an investment in building. All right? So if you need money today, that may not be the best option because you're going to invest that money. But then as you're starting to build money up in your direct sales company, you're going to have to put that money back in to build up. But so I'm not saying that direct sales wouldn't be beneficial for you, as you're building your situation. Yes, in my personal opinion, a direct sales business, a direct sales company is going to be beneficial for you as you build out of your situation. All right, but when you're in that immediate need, like right now, I am coming up short, I can't pay my mortgage, I can't pay my rent, you have to look and say, what is something that I can do to get an instant income? All right, so we got to look at some of those options. All right. You have the time. We have a lot of places that are looking for call center operators that you can do it right from your home. So you want to look at options for that. Getting on, I call it Dr. Google, but just using a search engine, whatever major search engine you like to use, and just start looking at that. We have all of the cruise lines that have a lot of work at home people, and so start looking, start asking around. Pinterest is a phenomenal social media platform to look at for various work-at-home positions because people have all types of boards out there and information and links to blogs and links to sites and so forth. So definitely get yourself out there to look and say, what are some things that I can do where the timing will work well for me to get that extra money, to get that instantly. If you're in the United States, the ride-sharing programs like Uber and Lyft are phenomenal ways. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Uber and Lyft drivers get money every week. So looking at that, if having a vehicle is a priority, or you can, you definitely have the funds for your vehicle, then you got to look and say, all right, now let me use this vehicle so now it'll make money for me, the additional money I need. So doing one of those ride-sharing positions and stuff. So that's what you kind of want to look at. So when you don't have enough, what do? That's just it. You have to prioritize, and that's where you have to direct that money to at the beginning. And once you know that all of those essentials, that you have a roof over your head, you have food, whatever the major utilities are taken care of, looking at your vehicle. A phone is definitely a necessity. We live in a day and age where even if you are just on a mobile device, you can do the prepaid, so you have to be creative for your situation. I cannot give you a definitive answer, but I can tell you, look at what your priorities are. The priorities that I laid out for you were priorities for my life, what works for me. You do the exact same thing and say, what are the priorities for your individual life, your individual situation, and then that's how you direct your cash. So once again, let me add the disclaimer that I am not a financial expert. I am not trained in finances. I'm trained in school of real life. And I'm just coming out and I'm telling you how, I've been able to personally overcome a situation and just offering my suggestion to you. So I wanted to tell a story in the church I go to, and it's funny where the church I went. I still am a member of the church, but it's in a different state than where I live now. And there's a woman in that church, in my church, and I just love her. I mean, God has really blessed her. She is just, when you just look and you want that inspiration or whatever, and this woman is it. And one day she got up and she told her story in church, and she created like this food pantry. And, of course, the church supports the food pantry. She had a big gala event celebrating their anniversary. Oprah Winfrey came and was the keynote speaker. Like, this is the thing where you're like, wow, this woman really has it going on. And she's not that she's not that old of a woman. She's not old at all. She's a young woman. And she got up in church one day, and we were honoring her for something at church. I can't remember the details behind it. But she talked about the promise she made to God. She talked about how there was a time in her life where she didn't have a roof over her head. Her and her kids were living out of her car. And when you look at this woman and you see all that she accomplished, you would never, you see just the favor that God has on her, you would have never thought that she would have come out and said, I lived in my car with my children because I didn't have the money. I didn't whatever. She said she prayed to God, and she said, God, if you get me out of this situation, I promise you I will bless everyone the same way that you blessed me. And of course, the grace of God got her out of that situation. She started the food pantry, and now throughout, the area in Texas, probably even farther than Texas, she is feeding so many people, and just the favor over God because of what she's doing and the blessing of her life because where she was. She understands. She's been there. She knew it. But the biggest thing out of that whole story, not just the favor of God that's on her life and the blessing that she has, the reason I wanted to share that story here on this broadcast was she made not only a commitment to God, she also made a commitment to herself and saying, this is a situation that I've gotten myself into for whatever circumstance it may be. No explanation, no justification when you're in whatever circumstance you are. But what she did when she did that commitment to God, she also committed to herself that I'm going to do whatever it is I have to do to make sure that I'm not here again. So she appreciated where she was at that moment, because by her appreciating where she was at that moment, set her up for the future and where she was going and what she was doing for the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want you to sit and say, oh my God, I got to have everything in order. Oh my God, I'm going to overwhelm myself. You have to write it down. When you pen it to paper, it becomes real. It becomes solid. So you write all of that down. And you say, this is my situation. This is the situation that I need to get out of. This is the situation that's going to take me to the next level. Now let me prioritize what's the most important to me. And then you're going to address those things one by one by one. Do not overwhelm yourself. We talked about taking that strategic pause. Finding whatever it is. Like, I love the candles. I'm always lighting candles because that brings me peace. That brings me calmness. That helps me to get clarity. Getting your space to be your sacred space. Getting a space. We have prayer closets. Where's your place that you go to pray, to meditate, to really concentrate? Get that clarity. Write it down, pen it to paper, and then do one thing at a time. because that's the only way that you're going to lay out the action plan, lay out the steps, and have the most effective strategy for your situation that soon is just going to be a memory, and it's going to be your testimony. I've been there, guys. I've been there. And I'm telling you exactly what I did to get out because it was the best for my situation. I appreciated where I was, and I made a commitment that I will never go back there again. I will never get back there again. It was a promise to God and a promise to myself. And if I got to a point that I was going to let myself down, the one person that I really do try to please every day is God, because I thank him for life every single day to give me another opportunity to please him. So don't get overwhelmed by the situation under no circumstances. Write out your plan, pen it to paper. But as you're writing out the plan, you want to deal with one thing at a time. And if your career is the reason that you are not making the ends meet, it's just the money that's being made from just the career or the job that you're in, part of that plan, after you've laid out your priorities as to what gets paid first, the next step in that plan is, okay, so now I have the strategy of how I'm going to make it day by day. Now, what am I going to do to increase this financial picture? Am I in a position that I can pick up more hours? All right, I don't always want to have 2 jobs, especially if I have children. Do I need to update my resume and start assertively applying for, well, not even assertive, aggressively applying for different positions? So looking at that and specifically saying, what is it that I am doing to take me to that next level? So as I'm appreciating this position that I'm in, I'm setting myself up that I'm not only going to get out of it, but I'm going to make sure I'm going to do my darndest not to get back there. So I hope that was just the strongest question I have. At our next episode, I'll answer some more questions that I've been receiving. But give me some feedback. Let's keep this conversation going. Let me know what you think about, me sharing that experience and sharing that story of my sister in Christ, and just saying, hey, you got to you have to put it together. You have to prioritize, and that's the whole thing. Prioritize, that's the key word. That's the key theme from tonight's episode is prioritize. Prioritize the responsibility. And sometimes we realize, let me tell y'all something, transparent moments. I realized that when I was in having a financial issue, it was because of my poor spending habits. It was because of me or my laziness. So I had to correct behaviors of my own. But until I wrote out that action plan, that was a behavior. Those are behaviors that I didn't even realize I had. So you're going to be surprised how your eyes open up when you pen it to paper and you start to prioritize. And you start saying, this is what's important. But with the food situation in the U.S., and I don't know much about couponing internationally, but in the U.S., coupons are money. Don't mess with my coupons, guys. Don't mess with my coupons. That's like stealing money from me. We will fight. We will fight. But that is a huge way to save your expenses. And you have to humble yourself when you coupon. You might like Tide laundry detergent, but it's cheaper to get the Arm & Hammer with the coupon because you're going to get that for less than $1 or for free. Guess what we're going with? The Arm & Hammer. All right? So you got to really put yourself on a humble. All right, so I pray that tonight's episode is a blessing to you like it was a blessing to me. I can't wait to get back into my regular studio with you guys. I appreciate you giving me the flexibility. The broadcast, live from wherever I am in the United States. I'm not out of the country right now, but I'm still in the United States right now. But this is just such a blessing, and it's such a blessing as I'm continuing to get my stats for the show. So I thank you all for following and listening and letting this show really be a positive influence for all of you. So have a fantastic rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you define your own success. Believe you can do it, build a solid foundation, know your circle, and soar. Until next time.